So, welcome, Barb, to Dating, Relationships, and Disability. While I told everyone about you and the work you do, can you tell us in your own words about who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm a boundaries coach, speaker, and podcaster, and author. And I usually start my story in 2015, so 10 years ago when I was age 52. I hit what I now call a codependent bottom. And I didn't even know that word codependent after literally decades of self-help and therapy and all that stuff. And so a codependent person is typically fixated on other people and situations and like, what does everybody else need, and ignores themselves. And I landed in 12-step recovery initially for codependence. And I, got into a couple other programs, and I've had a lot of issues, Kathy, but for me, I think codependence is my core wound, and learning how to build healthy boundaries is basically the antidote to codependence. So for me, of all the tools and skills I learned in recovery, I think the most profound in its effect for me was learning to build boundaries. And I think like the thing that most people like to hear as the best evidence of that is I am now in the first and only healthy romantic relationship I have ever had. Actually, next month will be 7 years that we've been together. And it has everything to do with both of us having healthy boundaries. So before, I had literally, I don't even call it a string of dysfunctional relationships. It was like a rope of dysfunctional relationships. And I always thought, like, not consciously, but I definitely thought it was them and not me. And now I know it was really both of us. But the reason that I couldn't be in a healthy relationship was largely because I didn't have healthy boundaries. So what that means is I didn't know who I was, where I ended and other people began, what was my responsibility, what I like, want, need, and prefer. So of course there was no way for me to communicate that. I thought being a chameleon would be the thing. And the reality is, you're not going to attract somebody who likes actual you if you don't share actual you with them. And to try to constantly be someone you're not is unsustainable. So that's like the briefest possible version I can tell you of my story.
Which is why I was so excited to interview you because it's significant meets of the work I do with people. It's not just helping them with dating, but helping them to have healthy
Yes.
relationships. And we
Right.
talk about boundaries
Yes.
all the
Of
time.
course. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
that.
Like boundaries permeate every area of your life. They're about your identity and they're
Right,
about belonging. Because if you don't know who you are and where you end and other people begin, how can you know where you truly belong? If you're constantly people pleasing, you're not sure, do they like me because of who I am, or do they like me because I bend over backwards and make their lives a lot easier?
right, right. And I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm also a mental health and counselor.
Oh,
And
okay.
I come from that perspective of boundaries of really being about self-care.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Like I've made enormous strides in that. I used to be over 100 pounds heavier than I am right now. I drank abusively. I smoked bales of weed. I put myself in toxic relationships and situations. And I don't do any of that anymore. I treat myself as if I am beloved because I am by me and the universe. And I
Mhm.
take really good care of my body and especially my nervous system, which I learned by building healthy boundaries. It's a huge part of what I coach my clients on is self-care.
So let me ask you, people with disabilities, it's really improving in recent years, but we have a history of being devalued
Oh, yeah,
by
absolutely.
other people.
Yes.
So if someone is struggling
Mm-hmm.
to value themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
because of
Mm-hmm.
real awful messages,
I know, and it's
where
so
do
unfortunate.
you begin to develop
Yeah.
healthy
Yeah.
boundaries?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really starts with yourself. And I do want to say something about that. Like for me, Kathy, the core thing that shifted for me that enabled me to go from 50 something years of no boundaries to having such healthy boundaries that I coach people on it now is that I have come to care more what I think of me than what other people do. And I actually don't have a disability. So I didn't have that extra barrier that you and your listeners have, but I still had massive issues with and I didn't realize that I was so invested in what other people thought of me. I thought I did all the helping and rescuing, and fixing and saving and overgiving because I was nice. I'm like, I'm a nice person. And now I know it was because I was seeking people's approval. And it's fine to seek people's approval, but only if you have your own approval first. So I was throwing my integrity out the window and saying yes to things I didn't want to do, saying yes to things that even violated my values, acting like things were okay with me when they were not, saying, "Oh, I'm fine," when I was dying inside. And I am no longer willing to do that. So being an honest woman of integrity is way more important to me than what other people think of me. So I want people to approve of me, but I don't like with claws need them to approve of me the way I used to. And it's because I now live in integrity with myself. So another way to say that is I approve of me. And so your approval of me is like icing on the cake. It's not the cake. The cake is me approving of me. And I have to live in my skin. And so there are just going to be some people out there that are just going to write people off because of their disability. Those are not your people. Like, don't spend any energy on those people. Like one of my core issues was I didn't have words for it, but I realized through the process of recovery that my big issue was I felt like I'm too much and I needed to like shrink down and get smaller and back off. And now I've learned I am just the right amount of everything. Now, there are some people, many in fact, for whom I am too much. And you know what? They get to make that choice. Those are not my people. And they need to get out of my way because I want the people for whom they are my people. So I know that it's exceedingly difficult to not take things personally, and especially in a world that has so many like structural inequalities and prejudices against people with all kinds of disabilities, that you're constantly getting this message reflected back to you. So this is where the internal work comes from. So that's when I say you start with yourself. So you start by setting boundaries with yourself. So, for example, I mean, for me, it started with an email. I was like, I'm not opening that email while I'm at work because it's going to trigger me, right? So if you see a message that is like anti people with disabilities, like shut that down. Like, do not look at it or don't engage with people. Like you just tell yourself, my boundary for me is I don't look at messages like that. I don't speak to people like that. I don't receive messages like that. And when you start setting boundaries with yourself, it's best because there's no other person involved, really. And so you're going to have feelings come up. The feelings that come up when you start setting boundaries is the hardest part of boundary setting. So you're dealing with the feelings on your own. You don't have another person involved, and you get to process those feelings maybe by yourself, but maybe with a dear friend or a counselor or a coach or a clergy person or something like that. But you start to get work on allowing yourself to feel the feelings and not let them stop you from having the kind of life that you want. You
Mhm.
get better at setting boundaries with yourself. Then the next step is to work on boundaries with easygoing people. People who are going to be like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that was a problem, or I'm so glad you told me. You don't start with the biggest jerk you've ever met, because you have to kind of shore up your boundary building muscles. It's just like, when you learn to ride a bicycle or you learn to drive or you learn to cook, you start out not doing well.
Mhm.
And you have to practice to get better. It's the same thing with building boundaries. And I will say that I just had this conversation in a group a couple weeks ago, and I had never said it like this before. I don't set boundaries, Kathy. I have boundaries. They're
Mhm.
internalized for me now. So I don't have to think about them. That in the beginning, I felt like I was going to die when I set boundaries with people. So if that happens for anybody listening, you are not alone, and it shows you're on the right track.
Okay. Hang on one second. The summer in, so I'm gonna turn on my overhead.
Okay.
So I might go back to what you said about having the feelings,
Hmm.
because being a counselor, I'm very curious into feelings.
Of course.
Give us an example of some of the feelings that come up when you're learning
Mhm.
to set boundaries.
Guilt, shame, fear of abandonment.
Okay.
Those are the big ones.
Can you go into each of them just a little bit?
Sure, sure. So people feel guilty or shameful for putting themselves first because they believe that is somehow selfish. I think this is especially true for women. And if you have been a people-pleasing, like accommodator and overgiver, it's part of your identity that this is what you do. I know for me, like I said, I thought I was nice. So I felt guilty because I felt like it was my duty and my obligation to give and be helpful to other people. And then the fear of abandonment, maybe you don't realize it's abandonment. Maybe you think of it as fear of being judged, fear of being rejected. And unfortunately, the reality is there are some people when you set boundaries with them, they are going to abandon you, but most people don't. Most people don't. And one of the things that I learned in recovery, I have always felt like a powerful woman of agency. I've never felt like someone who was afraid of the world. But when I got in recovery, I realized, oh my God, I did not feel like a worthy person. And I also was terribly afraid of people. And what I realized, I was afraid of people judging me. But here's what came after I realized I was afraid of people judging me. Humans are judging, discerning creatures. I'm going to be judged. I cannot not be judged. So, how about if I get judged for the actual Barb and not for some fake version, some fake people pleasing, morphing person, chameleon? That's not who I am. So if I let you judge me by the actual me and you judge me, that's easier to live with than being judged for something that I'm not. And if you judge me as somehow unworthy or whatever for being the real me, you're not my person. Now, this was like a 2 to 3 year journey for me, Kathy. I don't want people to think like this is going to happen like that for you. I will say, I'm going to just give a little plug for myself. I do a 12-week private coaching program, and every single client I have ever worked with has had major transformations in their life, usually within 4, 5, or 6 weeks.
Mhm.
And I think because one, I have a multimedia curriculum, two, I hold them accountable, and three, I give them very specific coaching on their life situations, issues, relationships, etc. And most of them have done a lot of work before they came to get me. They've done a lot of work. They know all the things, but they don't know how to put it into action. So having a coach, whether it's a coach like me or a coach like you, usually is the thing that gets you over the hump to make the changes that you are looking for.
I love that. And I think, we all get disability or not. If you're human, you need help with boundaries.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
Yeah,
chances are high. Unless you grew up in a super healthy family that taught you boundaries, which
yeah.
that is not most humans,
Right, right,
it's
right.
just not.
Let me ask you a little bit more about dealing with the disability.
Mhm.
And many people with disabilities are taught still today to be grateful
Ugh.
for any romantic attention they get. And how do you recognize when gratitude can become like people pleasing?
Oh, that is such a good question. I got to think about that because gratitude has been enormous for me. This July was my 25th anniversary of keeping a nightly gratitude journal. So this is a really good question. I mean, I think um I don't know that I really feel like that's something I would have to think about for a while, but you bring up an excellent point. You don't need to be grateful for scraps. That's essentially what you're talking about. I heard somebody say the other day, um, if you had a bunch of scraps laying around your house and somebody came over for dinner, would you feed them a bunch of scraps? No. Why would you do that for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Metaphorically, in terms of like what you're giving to other people, would you give that? Like, you wouldn't give that to other people. So why would you give that to yourself? That's the only thing that comes to mind. But this is something I would definitely have to think about. But I just, I think what's coming into my mind is when I was a young person. I saw a cartoon. I'm pretty sure that it was Doonesbury, and it had a character in it that was in a wheelchair. And I think she might have been a teacher. And she was telling one of her students that she met a really nice guy that she wanted to date at this party. And the girl said to her, "How did you know you wanted to date him?" And she said, "Because he sat down to talk to me."
Mm-hmm.
And I like that hit me. I was probably, I don't know, like a young teen, 12, 13, 14 years old. And it struck me in such a way that I'm 62 and I still remember it. Like a simple thing, like sitting down to talk to her, to be on her level, was an enormous gesture, right? So that's something for which to be grateful for, right?
Right.
But to just think like, oh, I should be grateful because they gave me attention. Actually, this is what's starting to fill in for me is you can be grateful for the attention, but it doesn't mean you put up with shitty behavior.
Right.
Like if somebody lifts you up and you feel better when you're around them,
Mm-hmm.
then that's something to be grateful for. But just because somebody throws you scraps and then treats you like crap, no, because you are beloved. You deserve to be treated well. And this is where the self-love comes in, because when you start loving yourself, you walk in the around in the world full of love and you
Mm-hmm.
project, this is a person who deserves love. And the
Mm-hmm.
stronger those feelings are, the more other people's stuff bounces off you. And
Mm-hmm.
people who are threatened by people who feel self-love will not come near you,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah. I wrote a note because I am going to try to Google that Dewsbury.
I'm pretty sure it was Doonesbury. I'm not positive, but it was, I mean, it was decades ago. Yeah.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I love that. So, um, I'm having a momentary brain that, um, oh shoot, you said, oh, I know what am I? I had questions, but you're giving me so many good questions. I'm like coming up with my own.
Well,
Um,
maybe you should have me come back.
well, I already thought that about 20 minutes ago. So, but I do have a key question that I want to know because I work with a lot of people who are doing online dating
Hmm.
and boundaries get so blurred
Hmm.
when we're on online dating. Do you have, say, three simple rules
Hmm.
to help people with boundaries online?
Yeah, I think, well, one, I want to share a concept that comes from a 12-step recovery program on dating that I'm not in, and it's to have a list of red light, yellow light, and green light behaviors.
Yeah.
that you will engage in and that you will tolerate from other people. So red light, no, you block them. They're not for you. Yellow light, you're like, this is not good, but let me see where it goes. If it continues, then no. And green light is like, yes, I want more of that.
Mhm.
So making a list of those things for you personally and what's okay and not okay with you, I think is imperative. So that's my number one thing. Number two, you like if you, for example, if you like deep, meaningful conversation and somebody messages you and says, "Hey," that's not your person. So like know ahead of time what's okay and what's not okay, and then honor it. So you got your red light, yellow light, green light list, honor it. And then also do not live and breathe by the, like if you have an app, don't let it show you notifications. Check it when you want to check it. Do not be at the person's beck and call. And if you start having like a relationship, say it's a texting or emailing relationship with someone, if they're emailing you a little too much or texting you a little too much, then just let them know. Like, I check my email twice a day. Or, I'm not really into all kinds of texting. Another rule that I've learned about online dating from my peers, not so much from me, is if you feel like you really like somebody, don't wait too long to meet them because you'll build up this image about them that
Mm,
no one can live up to. And then if you meet them, like when you meet someone in person, there's a certain chemistry that you can detect that you cannot. So
right.
don't date them online for 6 months and then meet them. Like give yourself a deadline.
I think that is such a helpful piece of advice
Hmm.
because I had seen where the idea of the person
Right.
comes so big.
Right. Yeah, and nobody can live up to that because we're all flawed humans. We're all
Yeah,
flawsome. We're both flawed and awesome.
yeah. What would you say is your number one piece of advice you would give someone trying to date who also lives with a disability?
So, it's hard for me to say that it's also with a disability. I think this is for everybody. As soon as something happens in a dating relationship that bothers you, say so.
Mm,
That is the reason that I'm able to be in the relationship that I'm in. Both of us, as soon as something comes up, we deal with it when it's a bud, not when it's a full-blown tree.
yeah,
Right. And so when you say something is an issue for you, you can say it in a calm way, and then the two of you can deal with it. And then you can find out how does that person deal with conflict? Because conflict is neutral. It's just part of life. But if someone acts like a jerk about it, that tells you something. And the sooner you share something is problematic for you, the less irritating it's going to be.
yeah. You're you're preaching to me being that quiet because
Oh, goody.
I tell my people that I work with that all the time. You gotta let people know when you're uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
sometimes saying, I'm uncomfortable with that. And if they ask you why, like sometimes I'm not sure yet. So I just say, I just am. Like, I don't need to
And
tell
that's
you why.
okay. You don't need
Right.
to
Right.
explain why.
Right. I just am, it's my, and a lot of times for me, because I now know that I have like a history of intergenerational family dysfunction and childhood trauma. So a
Mhm.
lot of times I'll be like to my sweetheart, like, this is my issue. You're hitting a hot button for me. So you haven't done anything wrong. It's just I'm inflamed because of my history. And so I need you to know that I'm inflamed. You don't need to change anything, but I might need to take a time out to like soothe myself.
Yeah.
And also maybe don't say that again.
Right. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Barb, I would say we have more time to talk to you, but unfortunately we don't. But I do need to have you come back on
Excellent. Excellent.
all the questions I didn't get to ask you.
Okay.
So maybe every month so we can have you back on the
Sure. Yeah. Can I make a plug for one thing that's not mine?
Sure.
So Tiffany Yu runs a group called Diversibility, and she also wrote a book called The Anti-Ableist
I
Manifesto.
have
Can't
that book.
recognize- Excellent. I cannot recommend it enough. She's amazing.
Okay, and she's a friend of yours?
Well, I don't know. I would call her a colleague. We met on LinkedIn and then we had a call and I did a talk for her community. And then she sent me some flyers about her book and all that stuff.
Okay, yeah, and thank you for bringing her up because like I tried to get her
Mm.
on the show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And if
Yeah,
you like, I'm happy to send her a message and introduce the two of you.
totally.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll do that. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. And in the meantime, if people want to connect with you,
Mhm.
how can they best do that?
Okay, two things. One, I have a podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery. 40 something of those are about boundaries, but I have over 300 episodes. And then if you think you might want boundaries coaching with me, go to barbchat.net and you can sign up for a free 30-minute unshakable you call with me to see if we're a good fit.
Okay, great, great. And we'll put those links in the show notes.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much, Kathy. And I look forward to hearing from you and speaking with you again.
We will definitely be talking again, Barb. Thank
All righty.
you
You take
much.
care.
You do. So I think you're great.
Well, thank you.
I
I think I'm great too.
I mean, right when you began talking, I was like, oh my God, she is speaking my language.
Excellent. Good, good, good.
So I apologize